All right, we've got to get into a couple of different things here because this is going to be censorship-based. I realize that it's going to dive into more COVID stuff. My goal isn't to dive into more COVID stuff. It's going to come up a little bit, but this is on the censorship angle. Of course, we've been talking about how the DNC now wants the cell phone carriers to censor your text messages because they don't want you to send your text messages with, air quote, misinformation about the vaccine or the virus or what have you. And as we have seen throughout this entire pandemic, their side has been the consistently wrong ones. They're the side that has spread the most misinformation about the vaccines and about the virus and about masks and about all of that stuff. That has been them. And it's interesting because just in that that news brief there from Fox News, I mean, you heard about, the White House officials saying that what is happening now with this misinformation that is out there on the internet is that credible medical voices are being silenced by it. Well, you guys also silenced credible medical and scientific voices throughout the entire pandemic who ended up being right. And people died as a result of that. While the White House is out there saying, oh, this misinformation is causing people to die. Not really. But the information that you all suppressed and the horrendous campaign against hydroxychloroquine and various other treatments that ended up proving to be successful, that got people killed. So let's not mince words. Again, put them on defense. You always have to put them on defense. You need to go on offense. So anyway, this is Jen Psaki. This is her at a press conference talking about what they're going to do, especially on social media and things of that nature. Roll it, Josh.
With these social media platforms, and those engagements typically happen through members of our senior staff, but also members of our COVID-19 team. Given, as Dr. Murthy conveyed, this is a big issue of misinformation, specifically on the pandemic. In terms of actions, Alex, that we have taken, or we're working to take, I should say, from the federal government, we've increased disinformation research and tracking within the Surgeon General's office. We're flagging problematic posts for Facebook that spread disinformation. We're working with doctors and medical professionals to connect to connected medical experts who are popular with their audiences with accurate information and boost trusted content. So we're helping get trusted content out there. We also created the COVID Community Corps to get factual information into the hands of local messengers. And we're also investing, as you all have seen, in the president's, the vice president's, and Dr. Fauci's time in meeting with.
Okay, friendly reminder, just as they've been doing throughout the entire pandemic, they are picking and choosing what they believe to be the most credible information, and they have been wrong more times than not. That's the problem. So they're going through. Jen Psaki says the White House has been flagging problematic posts on Facebook that they believe are misinformation about Wuhan coronavirus. Now, remember when Fauci worked with Facebook to ban any post about the Wuhan lab leak theory? And that may have very well been to cover his own skin, because now members of Congress are demanding that he respond to him funding the lab while denying that he was funding the lab and funding gain-of-function research when he, in fact, was... Well, he was denying that he was funding gain-of-function research when, in fact, he was. Let's go back in time. All right, let's say you believe that masks save lives, okay? Let's say you believe that masks are the best protection against COVID. If you believe that, Facebook got people killed because they took down posts encouraging people to wear masks. Facebook actively banned people and posts who were selling masks to other people. So how many people died as a result of big tech censorship on that issue? They were wrong about the Wuhan lab leak. They were wrong about hydroxychloroquine. And remember, they were trying to tell you, well, the medical community says that it's dangerous to take it. No, it didn't. The medical community never said that. One or two Dorcases out there said that. The entire international medical community had undeniable, insurmountable, peer-reviewed evidence that it worked. Ivermectin was the same thing. Suddenly, ivermectin is the boogeyman now. Remember when they pushed ventilators? Turns out ventilators were killing people. What did they do to the doctors who are telling everybody to stop using ventilators on COVID patients. They took their posts down, they banned them, they censored them. And we can go through item by item by item by item on this and talk about how the government working with social media or big tech in general to ban certain content has actually caused people to die. And we could do this game for the rest of the show. Now, when they talk about flagging posts for misinformation, what type of misinformation? Like the World Health Organization told you not to vaccinate your kids if they're under the age of 18? That misinformation? But it's true. Now they're trying to pretend that that didn't happen. They also tried to pretend for a long period of time that the virus wasn't airborne. Well, it is. They pretended for a long period of time that you could get COVID from touching surfaces. You can't. Well, you can, but it's extremely rare. I mean, we could play this game all day long, but if they're talking about posts that are going out there right now, they were flagging heart inflammation posts a couple of weeks ago. The White House didn't want you to hear about heart inflammation. Now it's on the warning label for the vaccines. What about all of the scientific data which shows that people who had COVID are much more immune and more protected from reinfection than people who are fully vaccinated who have never had COVID? What about that scientific fact? Are they getting rid of that as misinformation because they want to vaccinate people who've already had COVID too? Which doesn't make any sense. See, they're going to pick and choose. This is, I've got an INSOG sign right behind me from 1984. This is the party from 1984 controlling language with Newspeak. This is exactly what's going on. That's actual censorship. They have been wrong from the very beginning with who they have censored. Those doctors at that clinic who are telling us what the fatality rate was and the success that they were having in treating COVID patients early on in the pandemic, that we played bits of it on the show. I did a whole premium live stream about it. They were taken off of social media. They were ostracized. They were right. What about all of the other doctors all over the world? Infectious disease experts, professors, the people who were the professors of the people who are now in leadership roles during this pandemic. Oh, here's another thing, too. Are they going to go ahead and censor a post if I were to post it on Facebook where I highlight that, in fact, in the United States, the epidemic within this pandemic is over? According to the official guidelines of what qualifies as an epidemic, according to the CDC? Is that going to get flagged as misinformation by the White House if I post that fact? We are below epidemic threshold. Well below it. And have been for some time now. You go back to last June. Remember last June when things were looking pretty good in the summertime and everybody was out there saying we're almost at that threshold where it's not an epidemic anymore? Well, we've gone below that threshold. We have been for weeks. Nobody's saying anything. Isn't that interesting? So if you post about that just to let everybody know, and you don't even have to call for an end to all of the pandemic stuff. You can just point out that, hey, things are actually much better than you think because we're actually below the epidemic threshold right now, which we are. That's a good thing. Why can't people know that? Because you have to be scared. That's the only way they're going to get you to actually go through and get the Trump shot. So the guy who's advising, okay, the senior COVID response advisor to Biden, you know that he's not a doctor, right? Now, I don't know why. Not that being a doctor has been all that great throughout this process anyway, but why is it that the senior COVID response advisor to Biden isn't medically trained? Not only that, I mean, the guy's got a controversial rap sheet a mile long of unethical corporate behavior. But I digress. But the dude, Andy Slavitt, he is not a scientist. He's not a doctor. He doesn't have any experience in this field whatsoever. So why is he the senior advisor on COVID response to Biden? What sense does that make?